Pick up your gear and open your chests. Throw on your armor and head out on a quest. Hey, hey, it's a brand new day. On the Sword Coast, your allies will help with blazing bows and magic as well. Hey, hey, heroes on their way. Fighting forever against overwhelming odds. Fighting together in favor of multiple gods. Idle champions of the forgotten realms. Idle champions, adventure never ends. Idle champions, hit you while I'm there. Idle champions, you reset again. Idle champions. From Waterdeep to Icewind, head out to Chult or Shadowfell, hey, hey. Together we stay. Walk to the monsters, walk to the boss, walk to the right, it's never a loss, hey, hey. Bad guys to slay. Fighting forever against overwhelming odds. Fighting together in favor of multiple gods. Idle champions of the forgotten realms. Idle champions, adventure never ends. Idle champions, hit you while I'm dead. Idle champions, you reset again. Idle champions.
Hey, it's me. We're back. We're back. Everything, there was some weird audio shit, like suddenly Twitch unmuted and you guys heard double music and I muted it real quick, but Twitch be glitching here on this Saturday, and since it's Saturday, that means this is Gaarawarr's Guide, the tutorial show. The tutorial show. I'm Gaarawarr. That should be obvious. It should be, but you know, hey, this weekend we're talking about the Absolute Adversaries because they're finally in the game. They're all of them. So the way I say all of them, we don't know. Like, people have been asking for more, but the way this works is CNE committed to. They told us a long time ago we're bringing in every origin character from Baldur's Gate 3 as a champion. And they did it. So, you know, they never said any others were coming, but you know, who knows? That'd be cool. I know I've seen people talking about like how they would like some of the other characters of the game in. Yeah. Same. You know, spoilers, there are some champions already here that make an appearance in Baldur's Gate 3, like Minsk. This is Minsk in his Flare Hunter outfit. I dressed him up appropriately. Boo's up here under one too. You know, Jaheira. I'm still waiting. I want a skin for Jaheira. This is the OG Baldur's Gate skin. I want an Elder Druid Jaheira skin. I really want an Elder Druid Jaheira skin. But so, you know, so there's some, you know, there's some related champions. But these are the ones specifically from Baldur's Gate 3, and that's what we're gonna talk about today. That's what we're gonna talk about today. The way this show works is I talk on the topic for about an hour, and we take a short musical interlude, and we come back, and then I do the Q&A portion of the show. You can ask questions at any time, because in the production booth today is Gabe! Yay! Yay! Gabe's here. Gabe's grabbing your questions from chat. As long as you put question : in front of your question, because that's how this works. Gabe grabs that question, puts it into a document over here, so that in the second half of the show, I can go back and answer all your questions. That way we don't miss anything, and that way you should only have to ask once, right? But you know, sometimes things can get busy in chat, and sometimes Twitch twitches. So, you know, if when we get to the second half, I will do the on-topic stuff first, and then the generic stuff. And if you don't hear your question, you can always ask again. But we're gonna dive in because we got 7 champions to cover today. We're gonna try to get through them as fully as possible, So let's talk about. I feel like the way we need to do this is we need to talk about the DPS first, because there's 3 DPS in the absolute potential DPS champions in the Absolute Adversaries. And you know, you kind of got to figure out who you're gonna build your formation around DPS wise. And they've got pros and cons. So you know, could you use everybody? Sure, but look, in Baldur's Gate 3, you don't necessarily. I mean, you're picking a small party and you're rolling with it. You don't get everybody in your camp all the time. And at times it feels like that's kind of how these champions also kind of work. We're going to pause our progress here on a nice level that'll let us demonstrate. Alright, so let's talk about the first DPS they brought to the game from Absolute Adversaries. Let's talk about Lae'zel. Lae'zel. Oh man, my eyes are watering. I don't know why. I swear I'm not crying. It's Lae'zel. No, female Githyanki fighter, lawful evil. She can be DPS, she can be support, she can be speed, or she can be all 3 at once. That's what we're doing. That's what they do. Lae'zel attacks closest enemies with a swing of her greatsword. It does say enemies. That means it is a small cleave. Lae'zel gets a passive ability, which basically ups her crit hit chance to 20%. Normally, champions and enemies, normally everybody has a 2.5% crit chance. So she crits 1 out of 5 times. Basic support buff, lethal coordination. She increases the damage of all champions in her column by an amount. This includes herself. This allows her to be a DPS and not lose a portion of her kit. Okay, so that's just her column. So if like in this situation, like if we're buffing right behind Karlach, who's Bay, and we'll talk about in a bit. Yeah, she's just gonna buff herself and whoever's in her column. We're gonna move him out of the way because she's the DPS now. All right. Ceramorphosis. This is a word you should get familiar with. That you should get familiar with. Ceramorphosis. Nice girl. Met her once at a bar. Your formation gains 1 Ceramorphosis stack due to the Mind Flayer tadpole in Lae'zel's brain. Lae'zel increases the effect of lethal coordination. I can talk. For each Ceramorphosis stack, and it stacks multiplicatively. You'll know this is a weird looking number, and that's because this ability has item support. And because it's a buff for each stack, and it stacks multiplicatively, and it has item support that affects the pre-stack value, this is what we call, in Idle Champions, a mathematically overpowered ability. It's got to have stacks, they have to stack multiplicatively, and it's got to have an item that makes this original number even bigger. This is the most powerful ability. These are the most powerful types of ability, excuse me, in this game. Because as you make it get bigger with item levels, this number gets bigger, and then you multiply it by that number by itself, and things just go. And you get outrageous values. So Lae'zel, we mathematically overpowered ability, we call it a mop. Lae'zel's got a mop. She'll mop up with that. And this is going to be familiar with a lot. This you're going to get used to this. I'm going to say this with most of these champions, not all. Most. Ceramorphosis, kind of a big deal. So what this means is the way you can translate this is the more tadpoles that are in this party, the better. Like things, because of this multiplicatively stacking nonsense, it's gonna get ridiculous. If you can fill out a whole party, yeah, that's potentially a very big deal. Potentially a very big deal. Doesn't mean that you always want to trade a tadpole for a big buff. Like someone else may not have a tadpole, but they may have a huge buff. And in this house, we like big buffs, and we cannot lie. So yeah, you know, you're gonna have to play with it. You're gonna have to play with it a little bit, but finding a balance of tadpoles and other large buffs and something you want to do when you're building out an Absolute Adversaries formation. Straight to the point is the speed functionality. In non-boss areas, whenever an enemy is defeated by anything, not anyone, anything, so this means click damage as well, other than Lae'zel, she has a percentage chance to gain an impatience stack. Basically, she's getting impatient. I want to kill things. When she has 17 of these stacks, you just complete the current area. Doesn't matter if you killed everything that you need to kill or collected everything you needed to collect or whatever. She just gets bored and she's like, I'm done, let's move. Then you reset the impatience stacks to the current Ceramorphosis count. So however many tadpoles are in the party. And stacks persist when changing areas. So this is great because not only is she just going to move you past a level that, you know, where she's bored. The more tadpoles you have in the party, the more often this triggers. Because the fewer stacks you need to build, because you're starting at a higher base value. Okay? This is why a lot of people, one of the reasons we're doing this is, well, A, they're all in the game now, but B, we just had a big giveaway recently where people on Steam got like 5 of the Absolute Adversaries. Well, guess what? That means Lae'zel, with all those people in, is a pretty solid speed champion for those players. And having more tadpoles makes it even better, right? Now you'll see mine has a 252% chance. This is because she has some feats for this that make it even better. Normally it's just guaranteed that she gets an impatience stack. Now, when this number goes to 252, what that means is 100% means she gains 1 stack, but 252 means she gains 2.52 stacks. Which just means, if you're using the feats, she's building stacks faster, so it takes even fewer kills for her to hit 17. And yes, it tracks the 0.52, so it will add that up over time. So feats make this better. Feats make this better, as do more Ceramorphosis stacks because they make it trigger more often. Now, this isn't only just, there are a lot of speed champions in the game, and I feel like I need to call this out. Her ability does not work well with some other speed effects in the game. It just doesn't. It wasn't meant to. It was designed to fit a very niche situation. Well, it fits 2 niche situations. 1, you have a full tadpole party. There's one situation. 2, there are areas to complete in this game where you're not trying to actually kill things or collect items. Instead, you're like they tell you, well, you need to like get rid of this barricade, and it's got like you have to do 50 hits to it to remove it, or you need to light these torches or close these sarcophagus, somehow interact with these items, and what they have is these little segments that you have to hit them a couple times to get it to clear, and then you have to move forward and you have to do it again. She is a speed champion that's designed specifically to move you past those areas, because she's like just ignoring whatever your goal on the area is and just like, well, we killed some stuff, let's go. That is her other niche. And other champions in this game do other things like reduce the number of kills you need or give you extra credit, or she doesn't work well with those champions. Just know that up front. All right, Aberration Hunter. Aberrations are Lae'zel's favored foe. Favored foe is a mechanic in this game that spreads across a lot of champions, especially the heroes of Baldur's Gate. She's not a hero of Baldur's Gate, but there is another affiliation called Heroes of Baldur's Gate. Minsc is a part of it, and they love to create favored foes. Favored foes have different rules, and each of these champions will define their rule about favored foes. But sometimes favored foes work together between champions. So champions that create a favored foe, like Lae'zel, can interact with other champions, especially from that Heroes of Baldur's Gate group, in interesting ways. So just keep that in mind. So she creates... so aberrations are favored foes for her. Aberrations are like mind flayers, folks. Every time an aberration spawns, Lae'zel's lethal coordination is multiplicatively increased by 100%, stacking up to 4 times the Ceramorphosis stack count. So there's a cap to the number of times it can boost. And resetting when changing areas. So while you're on an area, the more of these things that spawn, the more she's going to buff her main buff. There's a 33% chance with each wave in a non-boss area that an extra Mind Flayer spawns. So she creates her own. You're seeing them come out every now and then. There was one. We'll see, there's another one. Give me another Mind Flayer. Give me another Mind Flayer. There was one. There was one. Right? They're dying real quick because let's take these off the field. Come on, give me another. There's one. Right? So she's creating these, which means she creates the things that buff her. So you don't even necessarily need favored foes. Aberrations don't have to spawn in that adventure. She's going to bring some in, which is great. Okay. So again, once again, because it's based off Ceramorphosis stat count, the more tadpoles in the party, the bigger this can get. Ferocious Warrior. If Lae'zel attacks and any of her targets survive, so she doesn't kill them in one hit, her base attack cooldown for her next attack is reduced by 4 seconds. So she basically is like, well, I didn't kill it? Let me hit it again. Which is very Lae'zel. And normally she starts out at a pretty high base attack cooldown. So cutting 4 seconds off that is a big deal. This is good, obviously, if she's the DPS. But when she's the support, it means she's going to pretty much always be attacking faster as you're near your wall, because she won't be killing things as the support. So if you have effects that are based off her attacking, this could be big, right? All right, let's talk about her specializations. Just like in the game, she can become a champion, a battle master, or an eldritch knight. Champion boosts her crit chance by another 20%. That would take her to 40, and then increases her crit hit damage by 100%. So if you're building a formation around crits, and there are some other champions in the game that trigger things off of crits from the formation, you would go champion. Battle Master, when Lae'zel hits an enemy and they survive, so she didn't kill it, the enemy is distracted, and then the next champion, other than Lae'zel, that hits them, deals an additional 4 seconds of Bud-based damage. This is both a great support feature, well, this is a great support feature and a great, at times, DPS feature, because you're allowing another champion to basically do Bud damage. What's Bud damage? Bud is your base ultimate damage. It is literally your damage in the biggest hit from your beefiest champion divided by their attack speed. It is literally your damage per second. It decays over time if you're not resetting it, but basically it means you're giving another champion basically 4 seconds of your DPS when they hit, which means you're kind of creating a second DPS in that situation. And there are times where you're dealing with like an armored enemy, so an enemy that needs a minimum amount of damage to remove one of those segmented health chunks, where the more people that are removing chunks, the better, but usually it's just your primary DPS. Well, by choosing this, if you knew you were going to be in that scenario, you could choose this and you could create a secondary DPS in your party to help you get through those armor chunks faster. Alternately, as a support, it's a great option because you're never killing anything, and then whoever hits that target is going to hit it like a secondary DPS, right? Eldritch Knight. With Eldritch Knight, this is like her pure DPS spec. In my opinion, Lae'zel now casts Magic Missile immediately after attacking with her Greatsword, firing a missile at 3 random targets. This is another way that you can chew through. You can give basically her more wave clear, but also you could chew through armored and hit-based segments as an Eldritch Knight. Okay, I'm gonna go Battle Master. I like that one personally, but you know, pick what you need for your scenario. Is always the way to go with something like this. What does she get? Yeah, she gets Sonic Leap after this. Okay, so her ultimate attack, Sonic Leap. She sonically leaps into the enemies and attacks with a shockwave, stunning them all for a short duration. So you get crowd control, you get damage, and it's an AoE like this. Boom. There wasn't anything on the screen, so she just hops out here and goes, ah! But that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. Now, again, she has some good optimization. Obviously, this is the one that you would like shinied or golden, right? Because this is the one that supports the mop. This is the big ticket item. But she gets damage all champions, lethal coordination, the main buff. She can buff the effect of Aberration Hunter, so that's her favorite foe mechanic. Ultimate attack damage, ultimate cooldown. And she obviously has a variety of feats that fit these situations, from self-damage to buffing each of the abilities. You can buff Ceramorphosis. I chose those because, I mean, yeah, mop feats, sure. And then I have the speed ones in because that's, you know, usually I'm wanting her to be fast. But she's got like Aberration Hunter. She can increase her crit chance. She can increase her crit damage. Like, she has a wide variety of options. Fit her out as you'd like. All right, the other DPS option we're going to talk about the Dark Urge next. Now, I want to be very clear about the Dark Urge. Just like in the game, the Dark Urge doesn't always work well with others. Because he's chaotic evil. He's a male Dragonborn sorcerer. He is pure DPS, so when he is in your formation, you are choosing a Dark Urge formation. Because he doesn't do it, he isn't going to help you any other way. He's very selfish. Now, they did give him a little bit of all champions damage, but not enough to make him a support champion. So just keep that in mind. Dark Urge has a passive, and this is the strongest part of his kit, in my opinion. People are like, you know, the Dark Urge, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, this is his thing. This is the Dark Urge's thing. The Dark Urge is eligible to start in all adventures, even if the patron variant or other restrictions would say otherwise. He does not interact with any champion abilities or variant effects that are based on age. There's one exception, but the exception is called out by a different champion and not by the Dark Urge. So this is his strength. He can go everywhere. He isn't always necessarily going to be your highest damage dealer. He isn't necessarily the best DPS in the Absolute Adversaries. But he can go anywhere he wants. And that is a strength that you want to keep in mind for things. All right, base attack, Murderous Slash. He strikes at nearby enemies with a slash of his dagger. I know, sorcerer? Dagger? What? Look, it's a whole thing. Play Baldur's Gate 3 as the Dark Urge, and you figure it out. The Urge, the core ability here. Each time the Dark Urge defeats an enemy, he gains a murder stack. Hey, that's fun. The Dark Urge increases his damage by 0.1% for each murder stack he has. Stacks persist between adventures. This goes pretty high. The cap is 4 EO9, folks. That's 4 billion. So once he's become truly genocidal, he's maxed in damage. I've only got about 60,000 here, which is funny. This is my main account. I think my new account has 100,000 or more, so my Dark Urge has gotten more play over there than he has here. But yeah, so this is a permanent stack feature. Permanent stackers, there's a number of them in the game. You kind of want to go farm them up a bit. Usually, you don't necessarily need to cap them because they're going to continue to gain more as you use them, but Usually farming them up a bit is nice. I honestly don't know what is like if there's a stack number that where he really comes online. We used to say like EO5, EO6 stacks, so either in the 100,000s range or the millions range, probably. And there's specific places where you can just use them and they'll stack up, like I have on my new account. But if you want to just focus and really do it quickly, there's some interactions with other speed champions like Tatiana and Melf, who can bring in lots of enemies quickly so that the Dark Urge can kill them all very quickly, because AoE. There's also some variants that I like to call Chumbawamba variants, because there's a restriction in those variants where the enemies get knocked down and then they get back up again. And you can just keep killing them over and over and over again, and you can have 100 of them on the screen at once, just basically falling over in an AoE, getting back up again, falling over in an AoE, and you can stack up kills very quickly. These are some tricks to if you want to race through it, but you don't have to. You can just use him, and he'll build up stacks on his own. Ceramorphosis. Hey, we're back again. What's up, Sarah? Your formation gains a Ceramorphosis stack due to the Mind Player Tadpole. Mind Player. Same thing. In the Dark Urge's brain, the Dark Urge increases his damage by an amount for each stack, stacking multiplicatively. So again, mathematically overpowered ability. Again, there's an item for that. Right? There's an item for that. So, you know, dumping lots of item levels into the Dark Urge. Also another way to make his damage go wild. I need to do that. I don't have enough item levels in. It's only at 300. I usually take any mathematically OP ability. I take the item up to like 1,000. I find that's where it truly comes online more often than not with these kinds of champions. So that's a late game thing though, folks. As a new player, just be happy if you have some gear and some item levels. Living on the edge. So here is another way that that the Dark Urge, he's a double mop. It's another mathematically OP ability because it's stacks multiplicatively and it has an item. But it's not necessarily always one you can build around, so just keep that in mind. The Dark Urge has 6 Outcast stacks, which is odd because they use an Aerosmith song instead of an Outcast song, but sure. -1 stack for each adjacent champion that does not have the DPS role. So really the Dark Urge wants to be placed in a formation and only be next to other DPS champions. And if you can't make that happen, which means they need to be DPS/support champions, if you can't make that happen, he's going to lose a little bit of bit of power. You can't make it happen in every formation layout. You just can't. But you can try. You can try. Yeah. So because this number is a smaller value, I don't worry about this one as much as this one. This is much bigger. Okay. So just keep that in mind. It's another bonus, but it isn't necessarily as big a one. You don't have to worry as much about it, in my opinion. Spec choices. Where he has 2 sets of specializations. This first one, Storm Sorcery, Draconic Bloodline, Divine Soul. Storm Sorcery, the Dark Urge's murderous slash attack is empowered by lightning. Okay, this takes it from a melee attack to both a melee attack and a magical attack. You get both, and you get the benefits of both when interacting with other champions. This increases the range of the AoE by 200%, so triples. Deals up to 800% more damage to enemies based on how close they are to him. Closer they are, the more damage. Super cool. I go with this one most of the time. Most of the time. Draconic Bloodline. The Dark Urge's damage is increased by 200% for each Dragonborn champion in the formation, and it stacks multiplicatively. That's the good way. Okay? Now, if it's just himself, there's only one, it's not worth. This one's going to be bigger. Right? This one's going to be bigger. If there's 2, it's basically the same. And I would still go with Storm Sorcery because of the way math works. 800% more damage is basically a 9x modifier. 200% is a 3x multiplier. And 2 by its turn multiplied by itself because of 2 stacks would be 9x. Same damage, bigger AoE effect, I would go Storm Sorcery. When Draconic is at 3 or more, it's the one that's going to give you the most damage. So you can pick between these two based off which one's going to give you the most damage. 3 or more Draconic Bloodline, otherwise Storm Sorcery, right? Now, Divine Soul is completely different. Divine Soul is the Dark Urge increases the number of murder stacks he gains each time he defeats an enemy by 200%. So you get 3 stacks instead of 1. If you're going to go farm stacks, you want Divine Soul. Now, keep in mind, this means the Dark Urge has to be killing things. If you're using like click damage to kill or fire breath potions to kill, this isn't going to ever trigger. So, but if you're trying to do a Chumbawamba or feed with Tatiana and Malf, you want this spec to get as many kills as possible. Okay, I'm going to go over here, then we're going to level up, and we're going to talk about the next specialization set. It's time to either embrace the urge or resist it. Okay, this is a key functionality of what's going on in Baldur's Gate 3. Now remember, the Dark Urge, Chaotic Evil. If you embrace the urge, the spoilers, they succumb to their murderous impulses. They unlock the form of the Slayer ultimate, and they deal double damage for each evil champion in the formation, stacking multiplicatively. So their damage goes up based off the number of evil champions. Right now that's at 3, so 2x times 2x is 4, times 2x is 8, so 8 times damage currently with this formation, and they get an ultimate that is a damage dealing ultimate. It's neat. I don't know what else to say. It's neat. That's when you embrace the urge. Now, when you resist the urge, when you try not to give in to these violent instincts, the Dark Urge's alignment changes. This isn't a thing really in Idle Champions. Your alignment is usually your alignment, but they become lawful good, and it changes in the UI. Like, they are no longer chaotic evil; they are a lawful good. You unlock the Withers Resurrection ultimate. Withers hangs out with your group every now and then, and when Withers comes out, when the ultimate triggers, Withers resurrects everyone in the party that's dead and makes them invulnerable to damage for 15 seconds. It's a big deal. We don't have resurrections in this game. We do now. Okay. And then they deal 100% more damage for each good champion in the formation. So that same multiplicatively stacking thing here, we're 3 and 3. So we could go either way. Okay. So you kind of want to pick the one with the biggest number if you're going for damage. But if you need functionality and you need a full party revive, which is a huge deal, sometimes resist the urge. Even if you lose, if you know you have the damage, you might still want to resist the urge. Okay. I don't know which one to pick here. We're gonna embrace. We're gonna embrace. So on resisting the urge, again, Withers comes out in the back of the party, lifts everybody up. We wouldn't be able to kill anybody this low in the formation anyway. But here's what this form of the Slayer looks like. Boom. Surprise. I'm a Slayer. I'm going to kill everything. Let me just jump out. I'm so big I can't fit in the formation anymore. I'm just going to jump out and I'm going to kill things. Scleritus Fell, the Dark Urge's butler, is back here, and I love it. I love him so much. And now he's like, thank you, my lord, and leaves, and you come back to the formation. Oh, God, I love it. They did such a good job. All right. So let's talk about items, I guess. Yeah, that's it. They're just a killer. They're just a stone cold killer. So, damage of Dark Urge. The Dark Urge is the Dark Urge ability. The Urge ability. Ceramorphosis, that's a big one. Living on the Edge, that's the kind of the next big one here. You can actually buff the effects of the Dark Urge, like Embrace the Urge and Resist the Urge spec choices. It's not pre-stack, unfortunately, but you can do that here. And then you can reduce the cooldown on the ultimate. Feat-wise, all of them. They got all the feats. We got, it's like Arby's over here. Damage of all champions. You got, I don't know why, but you do. And then you got direct damage. And then here's the big one, resisting the urge. Increases the base DPS of the Dark Urge by 400%? What? And then prevents roaming familiars from automatically activating the Dark Urge's ultimate attack, because that would screw up like your Wither's resurrection. You need that. Because, oh, here's the big thing about the Withers. When you get resist the urge, you can either hit that ultimate on your own to bring up people, or when the Dark Urge dies, if the ability isn't on cooldown, Withers just automatically comes out and brings everyone back to life, which is the way I like it. And that's what this makes happen. You got feats for the other abilities, including Ceramorphosis. Those are obviously the big ones. Living on the Edge, if you can get that working. There's even an up to an 80% one on that. And then there's the spec choice ones. These are tied to Elminster as a patron. You can only get these from patron Elminster. So this is late game stuff. I just want to be clear. You can't access this stuff as a new player because Elminster is a late game patron. All right. Oh my God. We're like a half an hour in and I've only talked about 2 champions. Look, there's a lot going on with this group, folks. I'm going to do my best to get through this, but we're going to have to take a hot moment to talk about Bae. Karlach is Bae. Look, she just is. Female tiefling barbarian, chaotic good, DPS, tanking, or support, or some combination of those 3. 25 overwhelm. This is a tanking stat, so she comes in at a pretty solid overwhelm state. Her Great Axe Cleave is her base attack. So again, a mini AoE with her melee attack. She has a passive ability as well, and it is Champion of Zariel. I know, but she is. As a Champion of Zariel, Karlach can be used in any Zariel patron adventure or variant, even as she would not normally be available to be used due to variant or patron restrictions. So basically, we have Zariel as a patron in the game. Every single Zariel piece of content, Karlach can go in and destroy. Yeah. Which, I guess, spoiler alert, look, Zariel is redeemed in our game. So, you know, I think redeemed to get Zariel is someone Karlach would be down with. If she could get past the whole, you know, other stuff. The whole other stuff. All right. Fury of Avernus. Karlach increases the damage of all champions, including herself, in her column and the column behind her. So if she is in tanking and she is not your DPS needs to be right behind her, which is why we had Lae'zel and the Dark Urge right behind her. This is how she would need to function. If she's being a tank for your other, if you've chosen one of these other 2 as your DPS, this is where you have to have them right behind her. Unless you have some other way to transmit that boost somewhere else. Okay. Ceramorphosis. Now, Sarah's back again, but in a different way. Karlach does not have a mop ability. But she is super strong, just baseline. So, for Ceramorphosis here, every tadpole increases the health of all other champions. So this ability lets Karlach share her health with other champions, starting out at a base of 20% of her max health, but then 2% extra for each tadpole in the formation. So we got 7 tadpoles here. So she would be sharing 34%, I think. Yeah. Which is a lot. That's not normally, like, if you get a full tadpole formation, she shares a ton of health with the rest of the formation. This helps against AoEs that come in. This can help keep other tanks alive, because she can share that with other tanks on a multi-tank frontline. So this is a huge survivability feature for Karlach. Rage. This is the big one. When Karlach attacks or is attacked, she gains a rage stack. These cap normally at 50 stacks. This buffs the effective Fury of Avernus, that's her main support buff, by 25% for each rage stack, stacking multiplicatively. 50 is a good number for multiplicative stacks. So the more you get, the better. Stacks are reduced by 60% when changing areas. So it is primarily just when she's on this area building up. The longer you're there, the more angry she gets, the more damage you're going to do. Infernal Engine. This is a tanking feature. When Karlach has 20 or more rage stacks, she ignites on fire, dealing 0.1 second of Bud base damage for each rage stack to any enemy that attacks her. So, again, 1 second of Bud base damage is basically your main DPS's damage per second. So at 50 stacks, she would do 5 seconds worth of that. Now, if your main DPS has a base attack speed of less than 5, when she is at 50 stacks, things hitting her are taking more damage than your DPS champion is putting out with any hit. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. Now, if your DPS champion is a slower attacking champion, then she's doing less damage. But solid damage, solid damage. Spec choices. We can go fully into DPS with Berserker. We can become a more survivable tank with Wild Heart, or we can be just a better support for our group with Wild Magic. So, Berserker, while Karlach has 20 or more rage stacks, she increases her damage by 50% for each rage stack she has, stacking multiplicatively. Folks, I am a Karlach DPS main on this account, and I got her on my new account, tested her out against the Dark Arch that had better gear, and she beat him. So I'm just a Karlach DPS main. Look, when she gets her rage built out, she just destroys things. She destroys things, and I'm here for it. Wild Heart. While Karlach has 20 or more rage stacks, she heals 10% of her max health every second. So she self-heals 10%, a percentage. That's better than any healer in the game is going to give her. When you're at high levels of health, I should say. Low levels of health, meh. But high levels of health, big deal. Wild Magic. While Karlach has 20 or more rage stacks, she increases the effective Fury of Avernus, that's her buff, by 100% for each stack of Ceramorphosis, stacking multiplicatively. If you have a full Tadpole team, this could be a big buffer. She could become a big buffer for you. And, you know, you could use this for tanking, as a tanking support, if you felt like you didn't need the survivability. Yeah. Could be a big deal. I'm going Berserker. I'm going Berserker. Because, come on. I know she's in the front column, but I only go Berserk on Karlach, personally. Alright. Soul Coin, we're going to talk about that in a minute because it really just brings her online. An Experienced Gladiator is a final ability, and it's not going to matter for new players. It's going to matter for more experienced players. Karlach increases the effective Fury of Avernus by 10% for each Zariel patron variant you've completed, and it stacks multiplicatively. So the more she does Zariel stuff, the stronger she gets, and it's a real big deal. I've got over 300 stacks of this here on this account. 332. It's an E17 bonus. I'm not even done. There's like 60 more stacks I could get. So, yeah. So she is going to get bigger and stronger the more content you complete in this game. Oh, what a wonderful thing. What a wonderful thing. All right, let's talk about the soul coin. Karlach absorbs the energy of a soul coin, increasing her rage cap to 100 stacks. I feel like I could just stop there. Folks, remember, everything that counts her rage stacks does so multiplicatively, and this doubles the number of stacks you can get. But along with this, her Infernal Engine's Bud base damage doubles until you complete the next boss area. But remember, Infernal Engine, here, we're just going to light it up, and it's time for Flaming Onion Karlach. Remember, her Infernal Engine gives damage when someone hits her, too. And it was capping at like 5 seconds. Well, now it caps at like a lot higher. It's 100 stacks, but it actually builds up pretty big. Like, so your Rage can now go up to 100 stacks. Infernal Engine can now go up because it gets the double and it gets the other thing. It ends up being at 15 seconds of Bud, which becomes a huge damage, even more than Karlach's doing. Karlach's going to set a big Bud number, and then someone hits her, and she does just massive, almost 3 times, ultimately, what her damage is when they touch her. Amazing. The soul coin is amazing. The downside is the cooldown base is 11 minutes. 11 minutes. So as a new player who doesn't have like it capped here on the cooldown, it's going to take a while. It's like it's 175 seconds, almost 3 minutes for me, and I have the lowest possible cooldown you can get. Anyway, Karlach's big. Item-wise, damage all champions, health, that's a big one for her. That's why I got it golden, and I put a bunch of levels into it. She needs to stay alive. Fury of Avernus, Rage, Experienced Gladiator, all post-stack, unfortunately. And then ultimate cooldown reduction. Feat-wise, damage of all champions, health, that's a big deal for her. Damage, she has a 5x damage with a taunt on it, because why not? Fury of Avernus, Rage, Experienced Gladiator, more Overwhelm stuff. Like, she's got a variety of things. She has a variety of things. She really needs health at the high levels. If you're tanking with her at the high levels, she's a bit squishy compared to some of the best tanks in the game. She can go pretty far. I've gone into like the 1700s with her, 1700s with her before she falls over. She just can't survive up there, which is why usually if I'm DPSing with her, I actually move her back and I just put beefy tanks in front of her and let her wreck things. All right, let's talk about everybody else. Let's talk about another tank option, which can't believe I just said that. Let's talk about Gale. And then Gale is a support champion. Male human wizard, neutral alignment. Base attack is a firebolt. He just hits a random enemy, but he prioritizes an enemy he hasn't hit yet. So the longer you're out on the thing, the more enemies are building up. He's attacking different people constantly, and this comes in with one of his other abilities. He has a passive, it's called Ally of Elminster, so he can be used in any Elminster variant. Again, Elminster late game patron, so it doesn't matter for newer players, but later on, big deal. Archmage's Insight is the main buff. Gale increases the damage of champions in the 2 columns in front of him. So, Gale here is buffing both the Lae'zel Dark Urge column and the Karlach column. Okay? If I move him back, he's only buffing Lae'zel and Dark Urge, right? That's how that works. Okay. Netherese Orb. The first time Gale damages an enemy, they take an additional amount of damage from all subsequent attacks. This is a debuff. It applies to the enemy. This is what goes in with the prioritizing enemies he hasn't hit yet. He hits them, gives them a debuff, goes and hits somebody else. So he can spread his debuff around with enough time to everyone on the screen. Spec choices early. Evocation, Abjuration, Enchantment, or Illusion. Gale is incredibly flexible in this game. So he can basically fit what you need in your party in a way that a lot of champions can't. It's pretty neat. Evocation, like I love when they do spec choices this way. Evocation, Gale's Firebolt deals damage to all enemies in a small area. This is important not because Gale's a DPS, but because Gale's attack applies a debuff. So when enemies start to stack up in front of your formation, he can just debuff everyone. Super nice. Abjuration. Attacks against champions miss 50% of the time. Survivability feature? What? Like, he can just make your party survive. 50-50 chance when something attacks that it hits when you choose this. That's wild. And there are times where this is huge. Especially if your entire party is being AoE'd by, oh, I don't know, Valindra Shadow Mantle. Look, it missing half the time? Yes, please. Yes, please. Okay, enchantment. This increases Archmage's Insight's number of columns by 1. So instead of buffing the 2 columns in front, I could move him back here and he'd buff all 3. Why would you want that? Well, there may be formation layouts that force you to put Gale into a weird place, and you need to buff 3 in front to actually get the buff to apply. Or you might be trying to put it on a bunch of champions so that another champion can, I don't know, like, get envious of it. And I'm trying to talk around Artemis. There's reasons. There's reasons. And then finally, illusion, which is so much fun. Archmage's Insight now affects his column, so it changes how the buff works. Same column, and the column behind, which in and of itself, super cool, because again, there might be a time where that's how you need to put him. Okay? And enemies that attempt to choose Gale as a target for a single target attack instead choose to attack a different champion, assuming another valid target exists. What does this mean? It means I can move Gale up here, and when an enemy tries to walk up here and smack Gale, Gale goes, I'm not the tank you're looking for. And that enemy shifts over and goes to Karlach. We call this an anti-tank or a nega-tank. Even though they're not a tank, they can go in the front line. This is something another slot 1 champion does by the name of Turiel. They can go in the front line in this spec. And if you don't have enough tanks to put in the front line, they basically -1 a tank slot, because nothing will straight up target them, and they will go over here. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic option. I've used it. I've already used it on Gale in this event alone. It's a great option. It's a great option. Spec choices. We have Ceramorphosis. Hey, it's back again. Mystical Mentor or Finite Fellowship. Now, Gale has to spec into his Ceramorphosis, and this is great, in my opinion, because it makes him more flexible. Because there are times where maybe you're using Gale, but you're not using the rest. And he doesn't necessarily, and a Ceramorphosis base ability would be wasted. But here it isn't. So if we do have a lot of tadpoles in the party, this gives Gale his Ceramorphosis stack. Normally he wouldn't have one. And it increases the damage of Netherese Orb by an amount for each stack, stacking multiplicatively. And yes, that value has an item, and it's pre-stacked. So this makes Gale mop. This makes Gale mop. And in this situation, it's what we would want to go for, because we have a lot of stacks. Or we almost do. We'll have more here soon. Mystical Mentor. Gale increases the effect of Netherese Orb by an amount for each champion in the formation with int 13 or higher, and it stacks multiplicatively. Again, this is the mop ability. Is basically the second set of spec choices. So down here, you're looking for the highest number, because they're all going to stack multiplicatively. But this is a way that basically you could make the debuff even stronger in a non-absolute adversaries formation. Finite Fellowship. Gale increases the effect of Netherese Orb by a smaller amount for each champion you've unlocked that is not eligible for the current adventure. This is specifically for variants. There are variants where this number could get huge, which it needs to overcome the fact that it's a smaller stacking value. But there are times where this could be just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous values. Let's level him up. There we go. Okay. So then you get an experienced sage. So this is basically this is for every Elminster variant you've completed. He gets stronger. Again, Elminster is late game, so Gale isn't going to get stronger until the late game. He starts off strong, but again, it's another champion where the further you go in the game, the bigger they get. So Gale really comes online super late game. Item-wise, damage all champions, Archmage's Insight, Netherese Orb, so that debuff, then something to support all of those Elminster variants. So early on, this item's going to do nothing for you. Ultimate attack damage and ultimate cooldown. I've never... I need to overlevel it. Hold on. Here's a quick lesson on how to unlock a 4th feat slot. You unlock this to 100, and then you overlevel them, and then you get... and then you get it. Boom, like that. I guess I just never did that. Damage of all champions. He's new, folks. Leave me alone. Archmage's Insight, Netherese Orb, Experience Sage. Here's the spec choices, and again, because these mop, you want those. He's got an Immolation feat that if you do all of his content, this is one of his permanent progression ones, he adds a second of bud damage every second for 5 seconds. It's flavor, it's not OP or anything. Elminster gives him a couple, one's an Experience Sage, which makes sense, but another allows him to become neutral good, which, because it's a feat, would let him come into more, would qualify him for more stuff, both variants and, I think, patrons. I think this makes him qualify for merit. So neat featage later on. Neat featage later on. Oh, where do we want to go next? Man, we're already at the hour, and I'm still going. We got 3 more champions. There's a lot going on with these champions, folks. Let's talk about Shadowheart next. Female half-elf cleric of someone. Lawful neutral healing and support in our game. Sacred Flame is the base attack. It attacks a random enemy. That's just the way it works. Base effect is Twilight Trickery. Shadowheart increases the damage of champions within 2 slots of her. So, she is only buffing here, Lae'zel. If I move her up here, she buffs Lae'zel in the Dark Urge, Gale, which doesn't matter because he's not. Well, anybody like within 2 slots will. So for this situation, I want to put her here, and then she'd be buffing all 3 of our DPS. Okay. Within 2 adjacent slots. Light in the Dark. Shadowheart heals champions in the 2 columns ahead of her for every second, for an amount every second. So as you can see, we got all of this healing popping off above people's heads. Popping off. I know she's got one on her too. We'll explain that in a second. Ceramorphosis, she's back again, folks. She increases the effect of Twilight Trickery, so that buff, for each tadpole. Again, multiplicatively stacking with item support, it mops. Shadowheart mops. Invoke Duplicity. Shadowheart creates an illusory duplicate of herself, which hides in the formation and applies Twilight Trickery and Light in the Dark to champions relative to itself with half the range as normal. So instead of Twilight Trickery being 2 adjacent, it would just be adjacent champions. And instead of 2 columns in front for the heal, it would be a column in front. Okay. The duplicate positions itself in the same formation slot as the champion in the formation with the highest dexterity score. Ties go to the champion in the highest bench seat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up to 12. That's the numbers. So currently it's back here on Astarion. So the heal is popping off to Shadowheart, but the buff isn't going to anybody except Wyll, right? So we could move up here. It would buff Lae'zel. We could move like here, and then it buffs, and then Karlach and Lae'zel are getting double buffed. This is important. You can apply both the base version of Twilight Trickery and this version, because this version is referred to as Invoke Duplicity. So you can double target the buff, and that's how you want to do it. You want to make sure you're placing Shadowheart and the Invoke Duplicity close, like so that they're both hitting your primary DPS. That's the best way to do it. Okay. The spec choices are going to change things up a bit. Guidance. It was a neat idea. Look, I know guidance spam is guidance is a thing in Baldur's Gate 3, and they memed a bit here. It doesn't function. It just doesn't function. Can you make it work? Yes, but at the cost of so much that it's just a meme. That spec. Don't go there. So we're gonna move on. Sister of Darkness. If Shadowheart's illusory duplicate is placed in the same slot she is, so if she has the highest dex score, you basically get 5x Twilight of Trickery. Okay, if it works out that way, great, but you don't necessarily have to build around it. Okay. Find Yourself tends to be where we're going. The effects of Twilight Trickery and Light in the Dark from Shadowheart's illusory duplicate, so the version coming from Astarion here, are increased by 100% for each formation slot away from Shadowheart the duplicate is, following the shortest path, stacking multiplicatively. So this would mean we would want to do this and this. This isn't the best layout for this, but this would get Shadowheart hit by or Karlach hit by Shadowheart's buff and the duplicate's buff, and be at least a slot away. It would be nicer if she was more, but it's hard to get that to work. But that's what you do, because you're getting a bigger buff. And we like big buffs. Let's max her out. Okay. Absolute Sanctuary is the ultimate. So, Absolute Sanctuary. Shadowheart's mysterious relic strikes back enemies and prevents all damage to your champions for a short period of time. It looks like this. Boom. That's it. It would have knocked back every enemy on the screen, and then you don't take damage for a little bit. It's neat. It's neat and functional, just like Shadowheart. Item-wise, damage of all champions. Twilight Trickery buff, Ceramorphosis, again, that's the good one. Light in the Dark, that's the heal. Ultimate attack, ultimate cooldown. Feats are, again, all the things you would expect. All the abilities, Ceramorphosis, those are the big ones. In fact, there's one down here I need to get because, yeah. On to Astarion is born. Male, High Elf, Rogue, Neutral Evil, Support Gold. Yeah. Sneak attack is actually ranged, oddly enough. He attacks a random target, dealing massive damage if the enemy was recently attacked. So, I don't... Yeah, sure. But he's not a DPS. Passive ability, Vampire Spawn. Astarion counts as dead. This is a big deal. Astarion counts as dead for the purpose of effects that care about dead champions, but alive for all other purposes. There are champions in this game who give buffs and do things based off the number of dead champions in the formation, so Astarion counts for that. We jump right into spec choices. Of course he does. He outflanks either on the top or the bottom. He's, you know, he's up for either way. And basically it increases the damage of the champions that are either at the top or the bottom of columns. Okay. We're gonna go top here. This isn't the best low layout for this. We're gonna talk about the other spec choices. Well, no, we'll come back to this. So outflank, top or bottom, because we need to talk about that again for another ability. Ceramorphosis, back again. Increases the effective outflank by a large amount for each stack. So again, multiplicatively stacking with item supports, it's a big deal. Generational Wealth. This is fantastic. This ability makes Astarion a fantastic gold find champion for your party. Astarion increases the gold find of the formation by an amount multiplied by the total age of all champions in the formation. If the Dark Urge is in the formation, the effect of this ability is doubled. So the Dark Urge just doubles it. It's huge. The Dark Urge in the formation for Generational Wealth is huge because this could potentially get really big. And then instead of just adding a few stacks, the Dark Urge is like, no, I'm going to double the whole thing, bro. Let's go. So Generational Wealth can be very, very big. Well-Fed works off of the Sanguine Hunger ultimate, so let's talk about it. Astarion viciously attacks the enemy with the most health with a vampiric bite and heals himself to full health. Because he's selfish that way. Okay. Well-Fed. After using Sanguine Hunter, Astarion's outflank is buffed by a large amount. So just hitting the ultimate buffs the party. And this effect can stack multiplicatively up to 5 times if you're on the same area. So the longer you're on an area, you can use his ultimate 5 times. He gets a multiplicatively stacking buff. This is a pre-stack modifier from this item. So a double mop, once again. It's a big deal. That's a lot of damage. It's a lot of damage. And again, as if that wasn't enough for the ultimate outflank. If Astarion is buffed by his own outflank ability, so if we pick top and he's also in the top somewhere, or bottom and he's also in the bottom somewhere, when he uses his ultimate, he reduces the ultimate cooldown of all other champions in the formation by 10%. This isn't a requirement, but it's super cool when it happens. Because, hey, use your ultimates more often. And when you have cool ultimates, this is neat. Isn't always necessary, but there's times when you'd want it. All right, we have spec choices: Thief, Arcane Trickster, or Assassin. Thief boosts your gold find. That's it. Increases the gold find of the party by 100% for each gold find champion in the formation, stacking multiplicatively. If you're building out what we call a dirty farm now, which is just boosting lots of gold farm champions, you go here. It's a big deal. Arcane Trickster, Astarion increases the damage bonus of his outflank spec by 100% for each champion in the formation that's a rogue, wizard, or absolute adversary, stacking multiplicatively. Guess which one we're choosing this time, folks? Right? Assassin increases the bonus bud base damage Astarion's sneak attack deals to 5 seconds worth. Oh, that's right. When Astarion is not a DPS, but when he attacks an enemy that has been attacked recently by another champion, like it's damaged, he does bud-based damage to him, making him kind of a secondary DPS. And this increases that secondary DPS to make him more fully a secondary DPS. So, depending on the scenario, again, this is great against armored enemies, because he can then help take off chunks. So, depending on the scenario, you've got multiple choices here. Again, great options. I love when they give you functionality options like this. I think that's it. Yes. Okay. So, item-wise, damage all champions, Ceramorphosis, Generational Wealth. That's the gold find item. Well-fed. Remember, well-fed and Ceramorphosis, both mop. Outflank top and bottom. Does that one mop too? Hold on. No. Well, no. And then cooldown reduction. Feat-wise, damage all champions. You got gold find feats. That's great. Ceramorphosis, Generational Wealth. Hell, those are gold find feats too, and they should have these coins on them. See any? Ultimate outflank. This is the effect of the ultimate outflank. This is the effect of outflank top bottoms specs. Lots of different options here. I'm losing steam because we're through 6 champions. Time for the last one. It's the easiest one, right, folks? Right? This one will go super fast. Say hello to Wyll. Say hello to Wyll. Boy. Male human warlocks, neutral good, support champion. Has a base attack, if you'll note, has 2 icons here, melee and magical at the same time. Will stabs the closest foe, then casts Eldritch Blast on the lowest health enemy. So could attack different targets. Folk hero. This is Wyll. This is Wyll. This is what you need to understand to use Wyll. Wyll is complicated. Sort of. Wyll increases the damage of all champions that belong to the most represented race, class, or affiliation in the formation by an amount. This is written wrong. So let me clarify. Let me read it correctly. Wyll increases the damage of all champions that belong to the most represented race, class, and affiliation. It's an and, not an or. This is important. So yeah. If there's a tie, all tied groups gain the buff. And champions who are part of several groups can gain multiple stacks of the buff up to a max of 4 stacks, stacking multiplicatively. Specifically calls out that it mops buffs apply to the pre-stack value. Yes, this has item support. Folk hero. Yes, there's a Ceramorphosis. Also mop. Another mop. Okay. 4, so we call that race class affiliation. You're like, that's 3. How do you get to 4? Well, you can only really be one race, but you can be multiple classes and you can be multiple affiliations. But the most stacks you're ever going to get are 4. Okay. Now, because this is the buff, like this is a buff, and then if you get multiple stacks, this goes multiplicative. This gets, I mean, look how big this is already. This gets huge. Wyll, potentially, one of the biggest buffers in the game. Potentially. But again, it requires getting multiple stacks. I'm going to tell you right here, right now, you can't get 4 in an Absolute Adversaries formation currently. Why? Because let's look at our other DPS. The Dark Urge, Sorcerer, DPS. Absolute Adversary. There's no multiples here. You'd have to match. You'd have to have a lot of sorcerers, a lot of other DPS, and a lot of, well, we have a lot of Absolute Adversaries, but guess what? That ain't happening in this group. Karlach, Barbarian. Hey, we do have DPS tanking support. There's different roles, but Barbarian, Absolute Adversaries. You'd still have to raise like what? Well, it's race. Excuse me, race class affiliation. So this is Dragonborn Sorcerer, Absolute Adversaries. This is Tiefling, Barbarian, Absolute Adversaries. There's no multiples, and there aren't a lot of these others in this group, right? Githyanki, Fighter, Absolute Adversaries. Wyll doesn't get, yeah, it's race not roll. I got there, boy. It's been a long morning. Yeah, you're not accessing all of Wyll's power in an Absolute Adversaries formation currently. Who knows what'll happen in the future, but right now, okay. You know who does trigger this, and I hate it. Nerds, because Nerds has a bunch of different classes. There's a whole thing with Nerds. Wyll and Nerds, it's called Willy Wonka. That's how big it is that we named it. So just know, folks, you can use Wyll in your Absolute Adversaries formation. He's not going to reach his max potential currently. Okay. Ceramorphosis, again, Tadpoles, Folk Hero, stacks multiplicatively. I think we get that now. A Heartless Contract. Fiends are Wyll's favored foes. Hey, it's another favorite foe mechanic. All champions deal more damage, 400% more damage against Wyll's favored foes. That's fantastic. But, you know, you're not always going to be fighting fiends. But just know when you do, it's more damage. Mizora is Wyll's ultimate. We'll come back to that. Bravado. Each time an enemy or distraction is defeated, Wyll increases the effect of Folk Hero by 25%, stacking multiplicatively up to 10 times until you change areas. This is neat because you might not be able to kill enemies, but you could just be like, oh god, I need more damage, and you could click on a distraction, like this box was shaking. Hold on, it's going to shake, it's going to shake, it's going to shake. Ah, distraction. There, I would have gained 2 stacks, right, if I didn't have any. Spec choices, Pact of the Blade, Pact of the Chain, or Pact of the Tome. Pact of the Blade increases Folk Hero on champions with a melee base attack. This number is pointless, by the way, because this isn't a stacking ability. It's just who's your primary DPS? Is it a melee? Then okay. Pact of the Tome will increase the effect of Folk Hero for each champion in the formation with a magic base attack. Now this one, the mad number matters. Stacking multiplicatively, it could be 4, right? Is this? Pact of the Chain is the one that has the potential on paid accounts to be outrageous, because Wyll increases the effect of Folk Hero by 10% for each familiar assigned to his party, stacking multiplicatively. Look, I got a lot of familiars, folks. I got 96 sitting in the box over here. I can put a lot out on this field, because I can put 1 on every bench slot, 13, if we count click damage. 1 on every ultimate with a 10 champion formation is 10, plus 4 on the roaming ultimate bar, plus 6 on the field, plus 1 up here on auto progress, and then I can put a bunch in here, right? If I want to spend potions on that. I don't want to spend potions for that, but potentially huge. For my account, Pact of the Chain is wild, but we're gonna go Pact of the Tome here, just to be contrarian. I mean, there's 4 stacks. I don't have any familiars out. Nothing else. Let's talk about Mizora. Wyll's patron Mizora appears behind him for 15 seconds. That's not creepy. Increasing his attack rate and making him deal ultimate damage for the duration. Wyll can become a secondary DPS when his ultimate fires off, because he's doing Bud damage when he attacks, and he attacks faster for 15 seconds. So again, Astarion has this ability too. So, well, you know, with one of his features. So, yeah, great for chewing through armored enemies. You want to light this up. As long as your Bud is, as long as you're taking damage, chunks off with Bud based damage, when you hit this, Wyll's gonna start chewing through it too. Okay. Item-wise, damage all champions, folk hero, Ceramorphosis, and then bravado. Now remember, this stacks, but I think bravado is post-stack. It is. It calls it out here, post-stack. Then infernal contract, which again, it doesn't. It's not. Oh, Pact to the Tome. It's post-stack. So only two mop abilities. Then ultimate cooldown, so he can chew through stuff faster, right? The usual feats, like Ceramorphosis, clearly a big deal. He has a strength feat, which helps him qualify for Zariel. He has a couple of neat feats. You can throw in the Heartless, which is a call-out. If you know, you know. Constructs are now one of Wyll's favored foes, which you can just add a favored foe to Wyll, which could be a big deal. The Soulless, undead, become one of Wyll's favored foes, so you can create lots of favored foes. And then distracting imps. Imp distractions spawn regardless of the current area, so this makes imps spawn. It's for two things. One, it's for stacking bravado. And two, it's for helping you with patron challenges if you need to click on a lot of distractions. That's it. That's it. I'm done talking now. For a couple minutes. We've got a bunch of questions stacked up. Thank you, folks, for giving me something to do for the second half of the show. We got about 17 sitting here. If you have questions, remember, question : before your question, and Gabe will grab it. I'm going to come back here in a few minutes after this song. The song we're going to listen to because Hive Mind, the song for Mind Flayers.
Open up your mind and be free. No more pain, no more sorrow for thee. At the end of time, the universe is ours. Join us as we sail across the stars. Take our hands, you'll never be alone again. We will be your only friends. Across the march of time, we subjugate the weak and strong. Your mind can't resist, so why not come along? Ever growing, all consuming, no resisting, thoughts subsuming. dreams are such a tasty treat. Your memories exist for us to eat. Hopes and dreams are sour, but fears and doubts are sweet. We relish in your flavors of defeat. Always rising, gaining power, never slowing, thoughts devoured.
Okay, we're back. I'm like, we're taking coming in hot because we got a lot of stuff to do, folks. I forgot about one thing. This is in a question. I'm going to jump to this question. I think this wasn't a question. Lediath asked, can you go over all the Ceramorphosis champions outside of Absolute Adversaries? There aren't any Ceramorphosis champions outside of Absolute Adversaries, but there are champions who can get a tadpole via a feat. I'm delineating these two things very specifically because they do not have Ceramorphosis abilities, but they can get a tadpole. Dynahair, I had them. They were here the whole time. Dynahair with the Elithid Tadpole. It has a different buff. This is damage of all champions. Viconia Devere. Damage all champions 25%. Plus can be a Tadpole. Minsk and Boo. Damage all champions 25%. Plus a Tadpole stack. Narak. Look, he's a Gith. Leave it alone. Again, damage all champions 25%, plus a tadpole stack. I had Jaheira here. I feel like at some point she may get one. She doesn't have one that I know of at the moment, but Jaheira. Look, Jaheira's cool. Also, look, remember at the top I said, look, the Dark Urge doesn't get along with everybody, and you know if you're putting the Dark Age, you're going in your formation, you're going all in on Dark Urge DPS. Well, if you don't want to use Dark Urge as a DPS champion. Hey, it's me, Mon. Mon has a tadpole feat. Okay, so you can currently build out a full Ceramorphosis formation. Now, whether or not these champions are the ones that you want to support your Absolute Adversaries group or not, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe, maybe not. There's reasons. There's reasons why maybe not. Why maybe not? So yeah, but you can currently. You can. If there's any others I've forgotten. It's hard to track all the feats in this game, folks. Ledia comes in with another big question, and this one I'm not going to answer. But I'm going to ask it. Can you go over how to best utilize Wyll's folk hero in Absolute Adversary-centric formations? No, not really. Because I would then have to talk about how you would build out a dark, like what's the best Dark Urge formation? What's the best Lae'zel formation? What's the best Karlach formation? Instead, here's what I'll say. You want to look, here's what you want to do. I'm going to tell you what you want to do, and then you can do it if you want to. If we look at Folk Hero, you can pick who your who is your DPS, and you can look at what they're qualifying for. Right now, the Absolute Adversaries are the biggest affiliation, but classes are all tied at 1, which means all of our current DPS are getting 2 stacks of Folk Hero, so we're at least accessing the multiplicative stacking. If we go look at the Dark Urge and we look at their Folk Hero bonus, just so you see what this gets to. 2 stacks is an E36 buff for me. Okay. Ironically, humans are the most represented race, which means right now Wyll's actually getting the most boost from this. What's 3 stacks look like, folks? Oh, just E53. Just E53. So what you would kind of want to do if you want to use somebody, if you want to use like the Dark Urge, Karlach, or Lae'zel as your DPS, you would kind of try to you would need to at least tie with race 2. I don't think it's possible with, well, hold on. Does she count, do they count that? They do! Lae'zel would be so, they would both be so mad at this. They count Gith. So if you want to throw Narak in, suddenly Lae'zel's triggering 3. Suddenly Lae'zel's triggering 3. And this would be for like a Lae'zel. You would need to try to keep this set up for Lae'zel. For Karlach, you'd need another Tiefling in. For the Dark Urge, you'd need another Dragonborn in. But what you'd want to be very careful about is not screwing up this class balance. Or making sure that Sorcerer for Dark Urge was the big one. Barbarian was the big one for Karlach. Or Fighter for Lae'zel. Okay, you got to really try to focus around these if you're going to build one of those types of formations to try to maximize Folk Hero. What's that going to look like? I don't know. What champions you got? It's too hard to go. Too many possible permutations. Jorathanis, if Warduke is used, everything changes. Would Karlach need to be in the back to boost those in front? Karlach would need to be behind. Well, no. Karlach would buff anyone that isn't in her column. Because remember, Karlach buffs in her column and in front. Or behind, excuse me. Warduke inverts the phrase, or inverts the buff. And in Idle Champions, what that means is it puts not in front of the directional. So Karlach would buff anyone not in her column and anyone not behind her. But I think that anyone not in her column would probably override the not behind, so she would just buff not in her column. This is why I don't use Warduke. This is why I don't use Warduke. You'd have to put him in and test. You'd have to put him in and test. But yeah. Maxi Cuber, when you compared Karlach and Dark Urge, was Karlach in Wild Magic spec? No, because I wasn't running a Ceramorphosis formation. Here's the thing. Karlach does not care as a DPS if there are tadpoles in the party. Because her tadpole feature is health share. It doesn't affect her damage at all. So that wouldn't matter. That wouldn't matter. Now, if I was... Now, for Dark Urge focus with a Karlach in, if there were a lot of other tadpoles, sure. But on my new account, I don't have a lot of Absolute Adversaries. So, yeah. Fantasy Reader, what value, if any, does Dungeon Master add to Astarion's generational wealth? Age flavor text is over 1,000. Yeah, his age is 1,001. So it should add 1,001. Let's look at what generational wealth is. Total age 422. Well, hold on. Let me take her out and let me look at this again. Total age 374, and then we put him in, and then total age becomes 1375. So it's 1,001. Technically, behind the scenes, the dungeon master is I know age says over 1,000. It's 1,001 for math reasons. And then question mark on abilities, they're all 18. They're all 18. Just so you're aware. Matiste 1, I know this is kind of tangential to Absolute Adversaries, but I have a question about Lae'zel's Ceramorphosis stacks in speed comps. Sure. With enough feats, Ceramorphosis stacks, you can get her down to around 4 kills per zone. Yeah. Once you have a full speed comp unlocked, is it worth it to skip any speed champs in favor of more Ceramorphosis stacks? Again, it's depending on like what speed champions are you using? Because she does not interact well with some others. Because she is basing her own thing around just how many kills do you have to get. She doesn't care about. She doesn't work well with champions that reduce the number, like the amount of quest requirements, or that give you extra credit for quest requirements. So, and there's the so that's like for example, Sentry. Right? Sentry reduces the quest requirements, while Lae'zel doesn't care about quest requirements. Humon. Humon gives you extra credit. Lae'zel doesn't care about extra credit. So if you were using Lae'zel in a speed comp, you would want to put her in with other champions, like Spawn Rate. Spawn Rate with Lae'zel works real well. Extra champions coming in quicker, so that you get to that 4 faster, like if it spawns with that first wave. Great. So like Melf or well, anyway, I mean, even Lae'zel spawns in a Mind Flayer, right? Like she feeds herself. So those kinds of things could be useful to a certain point. But then it is, yes, just extra tadpoles in the party make her go faster. Make her go faster. But you are leaving behind a lot of those others. Right? Like you just anything that affects quest requirements doesn't work with Lae'zel. So you'd be building a whole different kind of speed comp at that point. Alethea, what's the point of Wyll's feat, which creates imp distractions? Well, like I said, it's to stack up bravado or to get extra patron challenge progress. Lurking Rider pointed out there's a local perk for Elminster that boosts your damage for 30 seconds after you kill a distraction, but it's a local perk. I don't really care about local perks that much. They matter while you're doing that stuff, but they don't matter if you're doing anything else. So it is very situational. Very situational. Going back to generic questions. Rough Rider asked, do we feel a little less managed with Sean on his way to Tokyo? No. I don't know. He was just here. He's not around on the weekends anyway. We'll feel the loss of Sean next week while he's on vacation. Loopy79, is anyone able to see the mouse over for the weekend buffs? Oh, hold on. Nope, they broke it again. They keep breaking that. This needs to be over here. Or this box needs to drop down so that it's beneath the others. One of the others, CNE, come on. So yeah, just submit a ticket. Look, you don't have to ask me or any streamer about this. You just have to submit a ticket. The second you notice a problem, submit a ticket. T5 Cats, I have no notification of the latest changelog. Do I have to update the game or something? I don't know what... Yeah? I mean, if you don't patch the game, you don't know about a changelog. Yeah. It would, if you don't, like... You gotta turn your game off every day, folks. Just in case. Yeah. That's how it works. Edgar the Peaceful, what are your favorite top 3 DPS champions? Well, Karlach, and Karlach. Look, Karlach is my favorite DPS. But if I'm going to be a little more realistic, I'm a Karlach main. That doesn't mean she's the best DPS in the game. It's just I like building formations around her. So I'm a Karlach DPS. I also love Caddy Bree as a DPS. Caddy Bree, I think people know by now, Caddy Bree is one of my favorite DPS champions in the game. And then I use Birdsong a lot. Birdsong, again, a fantastic. Caddy Bree and Birdsong and Karlach. Wow. All my DPS are ladies who can do multiple things very well. They can all support well, and they can all damage well, and that's great. That's great. If we want to do some honorable mentions, Narak used to be great, and then they massacred my boy. He doesn't even have a DPS spec now. Penelope Halfpint, super secret DPS team, and it's back again with her new rework. Sometimes she seals the bud values from my Karlach if I got her in the formation. And super secret DPS just means you can, for some reason, use them as a damage champion instead of, even though they're a support champion. It's weird. Their damage numbers scale really well. And then who else? Who else do I want to shout out? There's a part of me that wants to shout out Gromma's Swamp Spec because it's Swamp Spectacular, but I haven't used it in a long time. Commodore Crux is an evergreen champion. I will shout out Commodore Crux because whenever I get a chance to use Commodore Crux as a DPS, I enjoy it. He is a surprisingly good DPS champion for also being a tank. There's a lot of potentially good DPS in the game. It's just a lot of times there are a lot of voices in the community that only amplify whatever the potential highest one is with lots of item levels and stuff, and they tell you that you're garbage if you don't use this champion, or you're not blah blah blah. I hate that stuff. I can't stand it. There are so many champions in this game that you can build a formation around and do well with. Don't get locked into just one. Letty asks, I skipped this one. We'll come back to it now. Of the Absolute Adversaries, who would you recommend investing blacksmithing contracts into? I mean, I've put blacksmithing, or will be putting blacksmithing contracts on all of them. But because of the mathematically overpowered abilities, I mean, it's whoever you're using that has a mop that mops. They're going to want, at some point, they're going to want blacksmithing contracts. Here's the thing about blacksmithing contracts. You don't want to put them on champions, on the damaging champions and supporting champions until after you've done lots of good things with them onto speed champions. Not a speed champion like Lae'zel, but a speed champion that has item support. Like a Human or Briv, or some on Wyll, or like Dynahair has speed. Like, there are speed champions in this game whose speed is affected by their items, and you want to support them first with your blacksmithing contracts. And the reason for that is the faster you go, the more gems you're earning. So when you support those champions with blacksmithing contracts, you're creating a snowball of gem earning. They're basically investing in them, and they're paying you back with dividends. And until you're done doing that, you don't want to put blacksmithing contracts into other champions. Because sure, you'll get some more power out of them, but that isn't necessarily going to get you more gems. Right? Invest in your gems kind of first is my recommended thing. But like for a mid-game, late-game player, all of the Absolute Adversaries, except maybe Karlach and the... is it the Dark Urge? No, he's got Ceramorphosis. Karlach and... no, because Gale's got that one. Karlach and Gale, they don't really care about having huge item levels. Karlach wants it for her health item. She still wants item levels so that she can be a tank, but she doesn't mop. Those two champions don't mop. So all the other Absolute Adversaries are gonna be very happy with lots of item levels. In fact, I have like 1,000 on everyone except for the Dark Urge. Like, here's 1,000 for the Ceramorphosis for Lae'zel, here's 1,000 for Ceramorphosis for Shadowheart. Here's 1,000 for Ceramorphosis on Astarion, and here's 1,000 for Ceramorphosis on Wyll. I just need to do that for the Dark Arch, and I just haven't yet. But to be fair, because Karlach is my DPS, Karlach has 1,000 for her health item, just to try to keep her alive. Robo Grande, I just reached a point in levels where I can no longer level up my champions correctly. This is called the soft cap, as you can see on a lot of my champions on the screen. They got this circle with a line through it at the bottom. It's a soft cap. What does this mean? It means there's no more upgrades. Do I need to do anything to get past this? Yes. Yes. I mean, you can unlock your levels by clicking over here into something else, and you can level up. This is how you over level to get your 4th feat slot. But here's the thing: when you go past that, it doesn't really do anything. The only champion you would really over level, like on a run, would be your DPS. For every level you go above the soft cap, you get like a 1% damage boost, is my recollection. This is a holdover from back in like the early version of Idle Champions, where in the early version, every time you went up a level, your champion got a little more powerful, 1% of damage, and got more health. And because they got more health, they also got a heal to top them off so that they were at full health. Well, the health part got removed. I'm glad this worked out like this. The health part got removed, getting more health, but the damage increase and the heal still exists. So there is a situation where if you're on a very last level of a variant, you're trying to beat it, but the boss keeps killing you, you could switch this over to X1 and then just pump heals into your champions. Like every time you hit it, they're going to get a heal. It would heal their health pool. You run out of money real quick, though. Just so you know. Ifina, is there a new patron variant guide that pushes E10 to E12 influence? What? The guide for... What? The guide for Descendant Verse only gets me so far in it for Elminster. Well, Elminster's late game, so... Yeah. I have a Patrons 101 guide that has a list of what I call efficient variants, which is basically fairly high area goals with no restrictions, like no real functional restriction in my mind. And you can start there, but Elminster needs lots of stuff to max out. Elminster's perks are way more expensive than regular patrons, so yeah, you can't just max out like you used to with the others. You're gonna have to do a lot more stuff. But you can check my Patrons 101 guide and see if you've done everything on that list. Just to start. Like, I recommend those to start, but then you need to go out and do other stuff. So far, I have done a grand total of 2 Elminster variants. But with those 2 Elminster variants, I unlocked all the way to local tier 6. And I didn't bother putting anything global because I'm just working on local stuff. But I'll be honest, I haven't bothered finishing off tier 10 and 11 for anyone. So tier 9 is what I consider currently the highest tier in the game, and I just ignore the rest. So, you know, you can get through there. There are people who have already done all of the Elminster variants. Congrats to them. Congrats to them. We're almost out of questions, folks. What? How do we run out of questions so quickly? I was answering them too fast. Indy 2092. Sorry if this is a silly question. I don't mind. Do feats only apply when the champion is in play? Yes. So is there a reason that you can't have... Well, there's one exception. Is there a reason you can't have the same account on multiple devices? Yeah, there's no crossplay. So, in generally speaking, platforms don't like to share users. If you spend money on Sony, like on PlayStation, Steam doesn't then want you playing your beefed up money account on their platform. That's the general rule. It's also why they don't really want you. They don't really usually let you transfer accounts from one to another because the platform B doesn't want you spending money on platform A and then coming to platform B. They want you spending money there. So a lot of times those platforms don't want that to happen. Now, you can negotiate a contract that lets you. There are cross-play games out there. But it's usually a less studio beneficial contract. Studios will do this, specifically the kind of games that really want to get that kind of contract are multiplayer games where they want servers full of people, because especially PvP type games, because the players are the content, and if they don't crossplay, then then the content doesn't exist. And so those types of games will try to negotiate that contract because they're hoping that even though they're taking a hit on the contract, they're going to get more players and they'll make more money. That's generally how it works. But it's usually games that require lots of different people. When it's single player games, not as often. There's some examples, but just know they're taking a bit of a hit to do that because the platforms don't like it. But yeah, with the feats, there is an exception to that. But anything about a champion, including these buffs that you get from events, the champion has to be in the formation to access this stuff. The exception is Freely. Freely has the only ability in the game that works from the bench, because you stack up an adventurous tale. It's an ability he has where the more areas Freely is in that you completed, you have to have Freely in to get credit. Then he boosts the favor you get at the end. And he doesn't have to be in the formation at the end for that to happen because you already earned it. And he has feats that can boost that. So that's the only exception, but it's a very specific. He has to have been in at some point or you get nothing, right? Gordis, did completing all the elements of variants provide those few people enough influence to unlock all the perks? It shouldn't have. I think the current balance of the game is there. I don't think currently there aren't enough variants in the game to unlock all the perks for currently. What they did is they put the number that you need up here, and the content in the game is down here. But they're adding new content all the time, so eventually we'll get there. They've done this repeatedly. Every time they add new tiers, it's usually higher than what you can get, so that you slowly work up to it over time, which is why I haven't bothered doing it. At some point, we'll have enough content that I can go and do some high-level stuff and get it in a few, and I don't want to grind everything out. Although for Karlach, I will be grinding out all the Zerial variants, and eventually for Gale, I'll grind out all the Elminster ones. But Mert, Vajra, and Strahd, I don't know. I stopped a long time ago on my main account because I just didn't need them. Skyfire, I'm about to finish Elturel's Last Stand and jump into Trials. Nice! Any advice? There's a thing that people like to do on their first Trials run, because it's easier to do it there. Is they will go into, because you can only have access to Tier 1, which is called Normal. They will open up their own private group and just start it with themselves only. And on day 1, they will aim for a contributed DPS of between, and that's, hold on, let me show you where that number is. A contributed DPS here, total DPS, of between like 180 and 200, which basically it's your bud. So E180 to E200. They will limit themselves to that. They will clear the area goal, limit themselves to that kind of bud. And then they'll be done for day 1, and then they'll just come in and they'll do the minimum required to do all the other days. And basically by limiting yourself to that value, you're making it so that you'll have to do all 7 days of trials. And by doing this, you unlock 2 achievements that might otherwise be difficult to get. One is you're by yourself, so you're going to get an achievement for having the highest DPS in trials, in your trials group. And 2, there's an achievement for doing every single day of trials. So a lot of times the first time people do trials, they'll do that. You just have to make sure you're not like accidentally getting too much DPS. Or else you'll beat it too quickly, basically. But between E180 and 200 is usually the sweet spot. I used to just say 187. I remember early on it was 187 was the number that got thrown out. But it can be in between somewhere. There's a little bit of a variance. So yeah, that's the tip. Also, who you who you send to your assault party matters. Oh gosh, I ran into a bug. I swear this was a bug, folks. But I've already talked to support, and there's no way to prove that it was a bug. I send my Jarlaxle every week. Jarlaxle is an important person to send to trials because Jarlaxle, there's two others, and I don't remember their names at the moment. It's in my guide to trials, which you can also read. There's a Trials About Tiamat like 101 up on the subreddit. Jarlaxle gives you an assault party bonus. An assault party bonus is a big deal because what it does is this is your assault party, is your five players. And it takes your damage contribution and multiplies it by the assault party bonus. So you're basically getting more damage towards Tiamat. Now, this isn't necessarily something you would want on your first run, to be clear. But it is a big deal for trials runs in general. The other big champion to choose is like your Makos, because this boosts the number of scales you receive at the end as a reward. And that one may be what you want to do. You may want to send Makos so that you get more scales at the end of your run. I always choose Jarlaxle because I'm the person in our group that has the max Jarlaxle, or had the max Jarlaxle first. And so I've sent Jarlaxle every week. Folks, look who I sent this week. Tyrell? I did not. I clicked on Jarlaxle. Because I know it's a bug, because there's no way, I was the second person into this group, and there's no way 3 other people joined and went and looked, Tyrell? Oh, I guess we need a Jarlaxle. Or somebody would have gone, we need a Jarlaxle. No one did. So I swear it was a bug. Somehow I ended up with Tyrell. And so we're like scrambling. I got to do mine after this. Everybody's got to do every day. Because we lost our triple damage bonus. Woof. Woof. But yeah, so I've got a guide out there. You can read the guide. It needs updating, but so does Trials. So I just haven't been updating it. Yeah. Lilianter, forgive me for my limited eyesight, but Will's Pact of the Blade spec is... I don't understand what you're trying to do. Hold on. It's the numbers versus numbers. Hold on. Let me just pull up. Let me just respec Will so we can look at what we're looking at. Okay. Pact of the Blade. Everybody's numbers are going to be different. Pact of the Blade. This is melee champions only. It's not counting the number of melee champions. It's going to be whatever that value is. That's just going to be your boost. For me, it's 4626. It's 4626. And he said Pact of the Blade versus magic spec. So Pact of the Tome. Pact of the Tome is different. Pact of the Tome increases by 25% for each champion in the formation with a magic base attack, stacking multiplicatively. So I only have 4 magic here, and that's 1.25 times itself 4 times. That's like 2.4. Yeah, it's a garbage bonus because garbage. That's why I don't, you know. I did it just to be contrarian this time, but it's not great. If I did it times, hold on. It's 10, it's only a 9. Yeah, I don't understand what. I think Pact of the Tome I think Pact of the Tome is maybe broken. I don't know. It's not. I feel like Pact of the Tome should have gotten a pre-stack item support like Pact of the Blade did. But I mean, most people just go chain because they've got lots of familiars. Yeah. I don't know. Pact of the Blade is only for melee DPS. Pact of the Chain is for everyone with lots of familiars. But Pact of the Chain would almost always be better than Pact of the Tome. Pact of the Tome is just weird. Yeah, Pact of the Tome is a little weird. I don't know. We'll switch this to Pact of the Blade at the moment. It's Karlach. It's Karlach. Who is not setting Bud, by the way. I just want to point out. I don't know what's going on. Did I break this? No. All right. Larkin Ryder asks, will you also do every patron variant of the Xerxes campaign for Crocs? Yes. Yeah, I will. Look, I like these champions that are like, hey, the more you do of this content, the better they get. I like that. Gives me a reason to work with those. Last couple of questions, because we're out of time. Cyclops, how long do the trials last? Up to 7 days. Well, 7 days max, but you could finish faster. Does day one start for you the moment you finish Elturel? No, it starts the moment you press the button that says start your trial run, which is different for everyone. Me Mango, I'm new and only have Absolute Adversaries as extra units along with Hitch, Melf, and Penelope. Any strong unit recommendations? I'm stuck on tier 3. If you're in tier 3 as a brand new player, you already went further than you were ever expected to go. You already went further. Like a brand new player, tier 1 is your content. If you were able to do tier 2, congratulations. That's how much power you got from those champions they gave you and the gear they gave you. But you're not supposed to be in tier 3. So I have no recommendations for you other than go do something else. Honestly. I'm starting up in a little bit, about an hour after the stream ends. I'm streaming on my channel. I'm on a 30. It's day 37 that we're going to start. I can't do tier 3 content, and I've been playing 37 days. I have all the knowledge I have, and I have strong champions. No, I might be able to do like one variant in there after 37 days. But yeah, the tier 1 is supposed to be for new players. Tier 2 is you're not new yet, but you're not into the mid game yet, but maybe a little. You got some power. Tier 3 is you're in the mid game. Tier 4 is your late game. That's the way it works. Void TV, did you know Pact of the Blade is additive and the other 2 packs are multiplicative? It doesn't state that. So no, I didn't. If the game doesn't tell me that, then why would I know that? This is a problem with this game sometimes. No, it's just Wyll increases the effective folk hero by an amount with a melee base attack. I don't see anything about numbers being additive, so if it's doing that somehow, it's not. The game isn't telling us at all. Thank you to all of you for asking questions. Thank you to Gabe for grabbing them. Streams are done on this channel until Tuesday. Streams return on Tuesday on this channel, but you can come hang out with me if you'd like. Over on Twitch TV/Gaarawarr, you click my name in the chat, toss me a follow, so we know when I come online. I'll be back in about an hour-ish over on my channel playing again that new account hype. Day 37. We're going to be doing some. Today is long, slow grinds through some tier 2 variants because I don't have any speed potions. But I'm also updating my new player reference, which some of you might find useful. I'm doing that while we're playing, and so I can answer questions and all that kind of stuff. Come hang out with me over there if you like. I stream over there like 5 days a week. That's it. What song are we going out on? Honorary mention for Boo and Minsk. This is Space Hamster Blues. Bye, everybody. Space Hamster Blues.
I was on my way to Toro when I crashed and was struck down. Now I'm stuck here wandering with this loud and rowdy clown. But kick him for goodness, I hear him shout from town to town. Here we are in Baldur's Gate, fighting monsters and bell spawn. He said something about magic and swords forever won. But kicking for goodness, oh my goodness, not again. He says he lives by the sword and his tattoo is purple, but it sure looks like the blues to me. How did I end up here stuck with these weirdos, shrunk down for eternity? Yeah, yeah, yeah. The rain and mud on my face. Life was simpler out in space. Crossing stars in the astral sea. Whatever happened to me? Kicking down doors, blood on the floors, endless heroic killing spree. He says he lives by the sword and his tattoo is purple, but it sure looks like a bruise to me. How did I end up here stuck with these weirdos, shrunk down for eternity? Yeah, almost dead and it's thrill. My best friend trying to get us killed. The bigger they are, the harder he hits. Even demons and devils run back to their pits. The safety of numbers and we're with these pharmacies. Now we're heroes and legends, fighting evil with my crew. Beholders and dragons and goblins and kobolds, may our swords strike ever true. Where goes the stench of evil, so goes the cleansing wind of Minskin Bull. So now we go for the eye. Yeah, we go for the eye. How about we go for the eye? Yeah, we go for the eye. Oh, how time flies when you're going for the eye.
It's pretty great. Holy crap. It's amazing.